Hello, folks. Let's get into it. This is a new video on negativity in the hobby, and I thought we'd invite on if you watch any sort of YouTube or you're on Reddit or any other cesspool of the internet, you will know that the most toxic, negative person on the internet is our guest today. Well, he's not really, but it's out of the circle. You're right, man. You okay? Okay, now.
Well, if you're gonna give me the title, I would like, some sort of like medal or cash prize.
Yeah,
With it,
yeah, yeah,
just something,
yeah.
something to make it worth my time.
I don't even know. All right, before we get into it, do you want to explain where you think that reputations come from, and then we'll get into what negativity in the hobby actually looks like from some other channels.
I think it comes from just pointing out what I perceive to be the issues in the company and the game systems, and because I predominantly focus on that, yes, I do talk about the good things when there are good things, but there are so many channels that talk about the good. I felt that it needed to be balanced out by talking about what the issues were. And it's like, well, if anyone ever needs to, just wants the positive spin, there's plenty of channels that can provide that. So why should I need to cover that, was sort of my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And because I leaned so heavily into the critique side of things, for better or worse, it just sort of became we'll say the perception of the channel was just that that's all I can do is the critique side of things.
So,
Which is not really true, but
yeah, I mean, last night I was having a pint with a mate, and he was like, "Oh, so what are you doing tomorrow?" Because I'm doing some work. I was like, "Oh, I've got a few things, but I'm gonna talk to Maka tomorrow. We're gonna do some stuff." And he was like, "Oh, who is this person?" So I explained, and the way I explained your channel is I said, "Imagine Total Biscuit brought it to Warhammer." That's pretty much where it is, because he was accused of all sorts of toxicity. So, oh, he's so negative. No. He's an advocate for the consumer. That's what he is. He's there to critique things. He's not there to say, "Oh, how wonderful! The Games Workshop have sent me another box set." Like, it's not like, you know what I mean. But if you want actual, I'm not sure we're actually going to name other channels here, but I will use one example, even though I think a channel's fine. It's Discourse Miniatures, by the way. We're going to mention her in a little bit. I think a channel's fine. It is what it is. But if you want to know what negativity, like constant negging, looks like, we'll get to that in a bit. You know what I mean? But it's not. I don't define your channel as a fan as negative. Do you know what I'm saying?
yes.
No,
I just, it's a perception, and it's a perception that I'm in my own way partly responsible for causing. So,
sure.
Because I'm only going to speak up when I have typically something to say, which is often negative. But yeah, it wears thin. It does wear very thin after a while doing so. I've hardly put out any videos in the last month because I've just had nothing I felt was worth saying, and I didn't just want to be sitting there being negative Nancy.
I mean, I think that's also, you brought this up the other week, didn't you? When we were talking offline, you were saying, that there are, what was it you said? It was like, the so-and-so scandal just got worse, this just got worse, that just got worse, everything's getting worse. And I am seeing more and more channels going down that road. I mean, I've been accused of being negative on Games Workshop in the past, and as much as I do believe, I believe that there are certain folks out there who are really into Games Workshop in a rather parasocial way, where if you go against them in any other shape or form, they're going to call you negative. I also believe that there are a lot of channels out there who are willfully jumping on the Games Workshop hate train for clicks. I do, just because it's not your channel isn't that what we're not. I don't think we're saying that it doesn't happen, because it does. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you scroll back up through some of our earlier Discord chat, you'll see some screenshots I shared of a particular channel that's just excessively done it, where it's you literally all thumbnails are the same.
Again, no shade here. We're just literally, going on something that we saw. So yeah, I'm putting it on the screen now. So yeah, every thumbnail is essentially, this is something that Max showed me the other day, is essentially kind of the same. It's kind of, I mean, I can't talk, but it's branding. Do you know what I mean? Like, I do branding, but also, like, you can see every single one has a negative face. Every single one is like a downward arrow, or, you know, the Warhammer scalping scandal just got worse. The Warhammer crisis gets worse. Games Workshop just ended Warhammer's biggest scam. The old Warhammer Old World scandal. It's just like, it's relentless. It is the point here. It's just constant negativity. But another flip side of this, right? I think Discourse, in a way, is doing the Lord's work in making sure that advocacy is being given and news is being given out there to people who need it. But also, like, there's a lot of, there's only so much of. I don't know how somebody does this with the channel, because it would just grind me down to, like, where I'd be like, I can't do this anymore. Do you know what I mean? It'd just be too much for me.
Yeah, same. I'm the same, and all the power to them. They've got what works for them. I'm not going to judge them on what works for them. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, it just is what it is.
I mean, at what point, though, if you're a channel like Discourse, right? And I'd love to have her on at some point to discuss things, but at what point do you sit back and go, hang on, am I doing this video because this is an actual newsworthy event that I need to talk about in terms of consumer advocacy, or is this a video that I'm doing because it'll get clicks? Do you know what I mean? And I think there's at least one or two videos here where I'm like, you know, is this as big of a deal as you claim it to be, sort of a thing, you know? I think there was one, there was a video a while ago where she was straight up accused of clickbaiting, you know, because it was like, it was some sort of Games Workshop thing that was going on. I can't remember. I remember watching it and going, yeah, that's not what you said it was going to be when I first got here. But there are other channels who do this. I'm going to take this off now because I don't want to be, not doxing people, but I don't want to get into slinging matches. That's not what we're here for. Do you know what I mean? But it's just one example that we pulled up of what we're talking about. So you know what we're talking about in this episode. And that is general negativity in the hobby. But I also think, do you not think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy when you have a company like Games Workshop at the center of the hobby doing things like what they do? You know, I spoke to you before about the Horus Heresy box that I got because they told a local retailer that, hey, you've got to sell that box set at 10% off, not 15% off, so he couldn't sell any of his boxes. He'd already advertised it at 15% off, and then nobody wants to buy it. Do you know what I mean? When you've got a company like that, is it any wonder that we have channels that are solely dedicated to denigrating them and running them down? You know? Yeah,
the company makes it very easy to create negative content.
Yeah,
they do. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know. And channels are going to, you know, they're going to report on it more than they used to. It used to be very, very faux pas to make negative videos on Games Workshop. You could do it, but you wouldn't gain traction doing it. I think I was one of the first who sort of gained any traction. That was because I wasn't just doing the negative thing on it in and of itself. And there's a few channels out there, but you know, you don't have 100,000 subscriber channels. You don't even have 70,000 subscriber channels realistically that can do that. Like, I think maybe Gamza is probably the biggest in that regard, maybe. That's like the negative content. Like most of the channels that grow to any sort of big size on YouTube, like I'm somewhere around the 100,000 mark, I consider big. They're all talking about war, or they're like pro Games Workshop. And yet there's this perception going around that, oh, well, you know, you're only negative because there's money to be made. And it's like, no, there is way more money to be made by just being a channel that just regurgitates the fluff.
Yeah.
Compile and regurgitate. That is way more efficient use of time and resources.
I mean, we had One Mind Syndicate, didn't we? That just literally read from the wiki. That's literally all they did.
Yeah. And like a Wolf Lord Rowe, who just reads excerpts from the novels.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing, like, I'm not going to critique people's how they want to create content, put it out there, and how people want to consume that content. That's entirely up to the individual person. I'm fine with it. But that's a way easier path to go down. Like, I can pick up a novel and read out of it too. I don't have the voice for it, I don't think. You need that rich voice, and I don't really have a rich voice. I have a very whiny voice. But that's the easy path to making money in this hobby on YouTube. Then you've got the painting side of things, which is also you can get quite a big following, but it's very hard to gain traction. And you'll see people like Duncan Rhodes, who, he's not the greatest painter in the world, but he's not a bad painter by any stretch of the imagination. But he has a much larger following than people who are some of the best, if not the best, the very best painters in the world.
Yeah.
They're out there on YouTube. You can find them with relative ease. Many of them have very small followings in the tens of thousands. It's just, it's funny how it goes. But yeah, with regards to the negative side of things, it's hard to gain the traction. But, a few channels started doing it, and my route was just expressing my displeasure with the codexes, but then just trying to say why. That was really how I got my start, because it just wasn't happening. If you tried to talk about it, if you tried to do a forum thread or anything like that, it just got locked down straight away. You went on a Facebook page, and it was like, oh, discuss all things hobby. And then you're like, well, hey, I want to discuss the new codex and how terrible it is. It was, whoa. Not that kind of discuss everything hobby related.
Yeah.
But if you had kind things to say, then the admins didn't care.
Yeah.
And I got really annoyed at that double standard that was out there, especially on Facebook. And it was the old 40K for grown-ups, I think was the page that finally did. So if you want the case, Patient Zero, that was Patient Zero for me.
God, I hated that group. I couldn't stand that group. I couldn't be around there anymore. Like, it was sickening. Sycophancy of the highest order.
It was not 40K for grown-ups. It was 40K for those who share the exact same opinion. Which is, it's a shame, because, in a way, and this might be getting a bit too philosophical, in a way, I think it leads to creating a greater level of toxicity within the community, because you're not giving people an area to vent their frustrations. Instead, they just build up the resentment.
Yeah.
And rather than getting rid of it in a healthy way, you're just sitting there stewing constantly and constantly getting more and more frustrated because you just feel like you're voiceless.
So do you believe that channels like Discourse Miniatures and other things, not only is she providing a service in terms of being an advocate for the consumer, but it's also like a venting valve, like it's something that is a necessary component of being in the hobby? Is that what you're saying?
I think you need something like that. I think you need something like that. I don't know that is the best way. I'm not sure.
It's
to
a
be
big
honest,
question.
But
it's a big question. I mean,
I'd rather it existed than didn't exist.
Yeah. Well, cynicism around power is always good, and I think we're agreed on that. And I know it's a libertarian ideal and things like that, but it's just a fact of life, right? If you have one corporation or one government or whatever it is, one system that is really, really, really powerful, i.e. Games Workshop, you need to approach them with cynicism and you need to hold them accountable. Now, if that means that we need more channels of Discourse Miniatures, if that means that we need more channels that are like Gamza that are out there calling Games Workshop's bluff a little bit and saying, oh, hang on a minute, let me spread some actual truth, I think it's worth the risk of having channels like that when they sometimes delve into the realms of clickbaitiness, because they need the content that week. I think it's worth having them around for that reason, because if you've ever been on 40K for grown-ups, and I'm sure some people on Macca's channel or who are watching this video have been on either that group or similar, that is not the exception. That's the rule, by and large. Most 40K groups you come across are rampantly pro Games Workshop. And you have to realize and remember the amount of memories we all have that are tied up in this company. right? Maka discussed it last time in our last video. We're going into the Games Workshop, idolizing the dudes in there, knowing them, being like, oh my god, the smell of a Games Workshop, right? From like the poly cement glue, the paints, the laughter, the map you saw on the wall that was made from, paper that had been thrown in some coffee, of the local area, because that's their old world Warhammer map for their campaign that week that's going on. Things like that stand out to you. I remember going in there with my grandma back in the day before a long ride down to London to see my father, and she bought me a white dwarf. It was the white dwarf with the guardsman running forwards on it. Very famous white dwarf, right? And I swear to God, everybody in my age got the same white dwarf first. It was that one. And for some reason, I think it was like May of 1 year. It had the Black Templars in it and the Land Raider in it, right? That was the big thing that was coming out. The Emperor's Champion and all that. And it was and listen to the passion in my voice, right? Now imagine this weaponized. Imagine this nostalgia in a group weaponized, and the amount of voices that are like Macca's, that are like myself when I call Games Workshop out and stuff. Think of how easy and the motivations that you would have to silence voices like that. Do you know what I mean? So would you say, I know we're getting to the crux of the video, we're rather early, but like, would you say, in terms of negativity, Macca, in having it around in the hobby, would you say it's a would you say it's a necessary evil? So we should put it that way.
Oh, geez. I don't know if that's the word I would use.
Okay.
I think you need the necessary counterpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's probably the simplest way I would describe it. Yeah, something that's, I always say it's the naysayer. You need that person who's the naysayer. You can't just fill and surround yourself with yes men. You can't just fill your life with yes men. People will always encourage you, because that can end up very bad for you. And I think that it's a perfect example is this hobby, in that we always talk about Games Workshop needs the feedback. How they're going to improve if you don't give them feedback. And the typical response from these sort of communities was, oh, well, send them an email, use the official channel, don't complain on Facebook. So you'd send them an email and then they just never respond. And if they did, it was just some cut-paste platitude. It's like, well, people tried doing it the correct way. Now what do?
Yeah.
When you take all of their options off the table, you're going to end up with a lot of negativity, and it's going to become more and more obvious and more visible.
Yeah.
And the worse the company addresses those concerns, the more disgruntled the community gets, and the more the community tries to police itself, the more it makes one half of the community feel like they're being silenced by the other half. And you end up just sort of with echo chambers. So although it is important to have that counterbalanced point of view, it's very important not to slip into the echo chamber. That's what I'm getting at.
So we covered negativity, or the prevalence of it in the hobby. We'll come back to it. We'll circle back to it in a bit. But I wanted to talk about toxic positivity. Now, we did a video a few weeks ago on shills. It did very well. Our video on shills in the Warhammer sphere. I don't think we're going as overt this time, because we've already covered that bit. But can you name and feel free to name the channel, whatever it is that you've experienced, where toxic positivity has come about, where you're watching the content, or in the group, like say it's 40k for grown-ups or whatever, and you're experiencing a positive feedback to something that is overtly negative towards the consumer or the hobby in general. Have you come across that at all?
We get it just as recently as last night, watching the first reviews of the new Martian book for the Horus Heresy.
I knew you'd bring this up.
Coming out.
I knew as soon as you brought it up.
There are people we get people who get given a review copy, and there's going to be a certain pressure placed upon them by the company in exchange for that, right?
Yeah.
It's the classic, you're getting free stuff. We want to incentivize you to, by giving you the free stuff, to say nice things. They aren't the only people that do it. Everyone does it, let's be honest, right? Like as in every industry. Not every person that receives stuff, but every industry. And with regards to this particular hobby, we often see something come out, it's subpar, as many of the books are these days. I mean, you didn't need to have day one FAQs in the books of 3rd edition 40k.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And yet you'll have people saying, overall, this is a really good release. It's one of their favorite lines. Like, although, there's some slight slip-ups, this is overall a really good release. And it's like, no, it's not. Stop. Just, like, who cares if you burn the bridges with the company, right? Because if you're honest to your community, I think that's... All right, I'm going to stop myself here because it's very easy for me to say this because I am not dependent,
of course, yeah,
on my online presence,
yeah,
financially.
Yeah.
So it's very easy for me to say, take the moral high ground because I'm in no danger, all right? Yeah. But I understand that for many, they are dependent on the company. They've not diversified. They're entirely interlinked with the company. And that means that if they badmouth them and they lose it, then they lose the draw to their channel, for better or worse. So they're not incentivized to do the right thing, which is to say the truth to people. And in this instance, in that particular book, it was just people just...
Sorry, man.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just want to dive in because I want your opinion on something else. Before we will go into the Mars book in a minute, because I'm going to call that Macca's Rant Corner, where we take a quick break so Macca can get something off his chest. So, do you remember Gamergate? I mean, I'm assuming you do.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Do you think... Because if anyone knows what Gamergate was, I mean, obviously you do, but it was a severe backlash against gaming journalism and gaming review journalism being in bed with certain publishers and developers. Essentially, if you don't give somebody a good review, you will not get an early review copy of the game, their next game that they're going to do, which basically tanks your channel. Because the whole reason why people watch your channel is so they can get a review early and then go and buy the game if they want to, right? So it led to a very incestuous, uncomfortable set of relationships, shall we say, some of them a bit more carnal than others, between the developers and game reviewers, where they were essentially the same... The game reviewers became the mouthpieces for certain publishers, right? You couldn't trust a single word one of them said, right? IGN's still the same, by the way, given bloody Star Wars Outlaws 7 or 8 out of 10 I saw the other day. Ridiculous. But we'll get into that. Do you think, Macca, that we are due a Gamergate level event in Warhammer as a whole, or the tabletop wargaming hobby as a whole?
I think society as a whole needs it. The problem is that when you bring up something like Gamergate or whatever, it's the societal connotations. Like, the people who were anti-Gamergate very, very successfully were able to frame it as a hate campaign.
Yeah.
No, what is just needed is more integrity in general across every different area when it comes to reviews. Now, Games Workshop's products are a little bit different because, like, if let's say I was a car reviewer, okay? It's accepted that car reviews are gonna vary on the scale. It's very common, if you've ever read like Top Gear magazine or anything like that, to see lots of 5s and 6s.
Yeah.
It's very rare to have a car that beats a 9,
Yeah.
Even brand new cars. Often they'll say things like, it's got all these great features, but for this price, I don't think, and that'll be a negative, the price. And they'll list it in there. Such a thing does not exist for Warhammer. In Warhammer, it's like no, you shouldn't be reviewing the kit and giving it anything less than a 10. Yeah, it's all kits are perfect. You should be thankful that Games Workshop released this product and be ready for the next product to buy it because you appreciate them by building this product. Show your support. It's movies is another one. It's understood that movies are going to get a whole different plethora of reviews. Fans and critics don't see eye to eye. That's one thing. But even amongst critics, there's going to be quite a lot of variation. Again, Warhammer is not used to this.
Yeah.
Warhammer is very much you get positive reviews. When do you actually get negative reviews, and what is the negative review content?
That's the thing.
And I think to the people that get the free stuff, they are very careful with what they say because they're trying to guard that relationship. I've seen some quote-unquote shills do an all right job of dissecting the boxes before.
Yep.
But they're doing it very much, within the constraints of what they've agreed to or signed up to.
I think here's the thing that I've noticed, right? Do you know, in video gaming, you have creators like Angry Joe, right? And Angry Joe he's never really been in the pocket of any publishers. He's had good relationships with devs, but he's always, torn their games to shreds when they've come out and they're not very good, right? So as much as he can be annoying at times, and some of his takes are a bit wild, away from gaming, his actual channel, though, it is a respected resource because it is very down the middle. If he likes a game, he likes a game. If he doesn't like a game, he doesn't like a game. I don't know of a 40k or tabletop, wargaming channel that does a similar service. I think that's the issue here. We have extremes. We have Discourse Miniatures on one side and the biggest Games Workshop shill going on the other side, right? But we don't have any, I think what Macca's hinting at here, we don't have any of these channels where you can go, oh yeah, I trust that guy's opinion on that, right? We would if Outer Circle did actual reviews of boxes, or channels of your ilk did a review of a box. So here's the new box that's coming out. So rather than saying, okay, this is what I think of the reveal, or this is what I think of where they're going as a macro term, I've now got the box. Here, let's look inside of it. That'd be an incredible thing. We need more content creators who are of that middle line of, I don't care about my relationship with Games Workshop, I care about whether this is a good product that's worth your money. And I think a lot of the time, the reason why we don't have such a channel is because 9 times out of 10, it's not worth your money. 9 times out of 10, right? If you've got other things to buy in your life, Warhammer should be at the absolute bottom of the list. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, it should be right at the bottom.
It's very much one thing to spend $100 to buy a video game.
Yeah.
Right? And that's going to be your review for this month. Is getting that video game, and then you're going to play that video game, you're going to record it, and then it's going to go up on YouTube, and you're going to get 2 million views.
Yeah.
Cool. That's great for the YouTube video game reviewer. You can't buy $100 worth of Warhammer and turn that into a month of content.
No.
If you got to build it and paint it and rate it to show it off, because that's what people will expect, that's an awful lot of work, and you're not going to get the views, right? No. So how is it going to be financially viable? Well, you're going to have to buy a lot of kits. And if you're buying a lot of kits constantly, and you start doing any negative feedback, immediately your comment section is going to get filled with, well, if you don't like it, why do you keep buying it? Stop supporting the company.
Yeah.
That just completely smooth brain take that people come up with, which is like, well, I'm happy. If you're not happy, well, clearly you're the problem.
Yeah. Unironically,
there's a whole host of issues.
I know video game reviewers who get messages like that every day. Like, well, why are you getting the game if you why are you playing it if you don't like it? Because that's my job. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what I'm employed to do by you, on Patreon and other things. Shall we get into Macca's Corner? Shall we get into what's been pissing you off this week, Macca? Because I think we scratched the surface before of your interminable amount of hatred you have for this new Mars book, the Horus Heresy. So do you want to explain to the lovely people what the issue is of what we're seeing on screen right now?
Well, it's not that I have an interminable hate. Like, I'm like the long-suffering, this is not to put down anyone who has really suffered from a deadly disease, but I'm a long-suffering patient of a deadly disease who thinks that they're in remission and it just keeps coming back to strike them more. The doctors have started amputating limbs on me at this point, but I've grown at peace with it, to the point where I sat there predicting what was going to happen with this book a couple of months ago, I think, when it was first announced. I had predictions. I said, like, look, I don't expect any new units. I don't expect, I just think they're going to roll the Legacies, the Age of Darkness, these Emperor Battles units into it. And then, earlier this week, I said, all right, book's coming. They did an article talking about it where they interviewed one of the Horus Heresy developers, and he just name dropped some Astartes in there and spoke about the Astartes campaigns. I think this is going to be a very Astartes heavy book. And I think these characters are going to be in the book because they've mentioned them in passing in the fluff.
Yeah.
They're going to be major key cornerstone characters. And therefore, this Mechanicum book has nothing to do really with the Mechanicum. And then the book dropped, and it's exactly that. And the thing that annoys me is not that happened, because I predicted that was going to happen. But, well, actually, it's two things that annoy me. The first is all the creators out there that are saying, well, it's a good book anyway. Is it though? Mm-hmm. Is the first thing. But the second is the amount of people who want to say, Mackie, you're only ever salty, you take the poor, blah, 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 blah. These people are not coming on to say, all right, you were right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would just like that once in a while. Just come back to the channel. Someone who, hated the constant negativity of this channel. I'm unsubscribing. Come back and just say, all right, fuck it. You were right. You were right. I should have listened. Like, I would like that once in a while. Just to balance
what we're
out
saying is that is a guaranteed heart comment from Outer Circle. If you go back to his channel and you tell Mackie he was right, there's a guaranteed heart comment if he sees it. There you go. That is a...
The average subscribers, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but the average person who watches the channel knows what I'm all about, and they know the Macrodamus prediction, which I'm going to start turning into an actual, like, a little pop-up. I've got a little crystal ball that's going to pop up whenever I make a prediction from now on, because I think I'd got... The only things I didn't get from this book was I didn't guess the new Krios Venator Squadron, and I didn't guess the Raven Guard character.
Are there
but
any
every other part of the book, I guessed it.
Are there any actual Mechanicum characters in the book?
No, it's the Civil War on Mars during the Horus Heresy. So it's the Dark Mechanicum versus the Loyalist Mechanicum, the traitor fabricated general who falls to the Chaos Gods, who's literally the head of the entire Mechanicum, the Primarch equivalent of the Mechanicum, named Kelbor Hull. Yeah. He's not in the book.
Yeah.
It's literally just a few warlord traits.
Literally, as I said just before we came on, there is literally a book called Mechanicum by Graham McNeil, filled with really good characters, and it's a really good book. You go and buy it, go and read it. The first 4 or 5
and there are other books where they pop up.
Yeah,
there are other books that they pop up, like not a book that I like, but Master of Mankind. And in Master of Mankind, there's a whole bunch of stuff on the Loyalist Adeptus Mechanicus.
Yep.
And how that organization gets formed, and those that have retreated from Mars to Terra. And so it's like you've got all this interesting backstory and fluff that they could be talking about. But out of this book, the campaign is broken down essentially into the key areas are the Imperial Fists do a raid, then the Raven Guard do a raid, then the Blood Angels do a raid on Mars.
Great.
And
more Astartes,
and the Astartes take up about 60 out of the 80 pages of fluff in the book. It's just why would you bother? For all the shtick about Horus Heresy being an Astartes-based game, first edition it was not. There was a lot of variety in first edition, and there is that same variety exists in second edition. You've got your Demons, the Ruin Storm, Mechanicum. You've got Custodes, Sisters of Silence, Imperialis Militia, Solar Auxilia, Imperial Knights, Imperial Titans. You've got all these other forces that you could play in the game. It's like 8 other factions, but the Astartes get all the limelight, and the Imperial Fists keep getting characters. And I know Cambodia is a fan favorite among 6 people. But I think I've finally come up with a solution to the Imperial Fist getting constant characters, because I think this is going to take them, if they get him in resin, to 8 characters in resin. Some legions have none, not even a HQ in resin. Yeah. So my solution is pretty simple. You remember there was an old episode of The Simpsons where Homer goes to hell and the devil's feeding him donuts as punishment?
Yeah.
Right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to stick Imperial Fist characters down the dickhole of Imperial Fist fans, and then they can tell me at what point they've had enough characters. I think that's a really fair trade-off, don't you reckon? And then once we decide that that's too many characters, we'll stop releasing Imperial Fist characters. I think that sounds good.
Where this ungodly rage against Imperial Fist comes from. It's like, you know, they are...
I don't hate Imperial Fist.
Okay.
Despite that statement, I don't hate Imperial Fist.
Okay.
What I hate is that there is one faction that is clearly getting everything.
Yes, okay.
And that is very unhealthy for a game system.
Yeah.
Right? And I make light of it by coming up with an absurd scenario that, you know, completely would not happen.
I mean, the one thing I would say that they are the Praetorians of Terror. They are the ones who are mainly manning the walls.
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
Okay, fair.
Don't give a shit.
Okay.
Couldn't give less of a shit. Because the Horus Heresy spans for 13 years.
Yeah.
The Siege of Terror is the last year. So for the other 12 years, everyone else is doing the fighting.
Yeah. True.
I don't care. That, you know, if you want to have a game that's all about the Siege of Terror, make a game called Warhammer: The Siege of Terror.
Yeah.
Don't make the Horus Heresy and try and pretend it's about other things, where the Mars book is about the Imperial Fists, and, you know, and Beta Garmin has them, and the Siege of Cathonia has them, and, you know, out of the 4 or 5 expansions we've got so far, they've managed to make it into pretty much every one of them in some capacity.
They're kind of like the Ultramarines of...
They are. And it's turning what is actually a pretty cool faction into an unlikable one, because if you play another faction, you're looking at this going, what about me? Like, Salamanders, 0 characters. Raven Guard, 0 characters. The Iron Hands have 1. They got Shadrach Medusan now, and he's 6 months old.
Don't the Raven Guard have Shuriken?
No.
He's not in the game?
No, like not in the game, and there's definitely no physical model. I'm talking about physical models.
Oh, that's stupid.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
World Eaters have Khan. World Eaters have Khan. No other characters. The Iron Warriors, they have a single discontinued model that was a Warhammer World exclusive only one.
No Dantioch?
And that's it. Nothing? No other. No Dantioch, no Forex, none of those. And all their special characters, by the way, for the Salamanders, Salamander's getting 1 in this book, who's nerfed from his PDF version, but none of them are in the actual printed rules. They only got a couple of characters in a PDF document that was released online, a very unbalanced PDF document, usually unbalanced in the worst way, where things just don't work. You know, it breeds resentment. And then the frustrating part is that you'll have people that will then look at this situation and go, this is good. This is what we want. And that's the toxic positivity element, right?
Yeah.
Where you're actively going against your own best interests to shield for something. You are actively denigrating and taking down the community around you and making things worse for yourself by trying to pretend that everything is okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very self-defeating mindset. And toxic positivity is just, it's completely cancerous. It really is. There needs to be a balance, right? And my character on the internet, even on your channel, I dial it down to about an 11. On my channel, I'm at about a 12, right?
Yeah.
But my real personality, I'm very different in person and off the air. And what you really need is you need to just be going like, look, there's pros, there's cons. We need to talk about it honestly and constructively. But we've reached the point, obviously, where we just can't constructively talk about it because you're just yelling into the fucking wind.
Yeah.
Because the company doesn't do anything. They don't listen. And a great example of that is just the tone-deaf roadmaps that we got the other day.
Oh my God.
Where they just tell you nothing in the roadmaps.
We'll get to that.
Like, if you're going to do a roadmap, the whole point is to tell us something in the roadmap. If you're going to tell us absolutely nothing in the roadmap, then why are you doing a roadmap at all? You know, you'd be better off just because nobody was demanding it, right?
No.
Nobody was saying we need a roadmap. We have to have a roadmap, games, and they reluctantly went, oh, "Fine, all right, we'll do it." No, it was a self-imposed thing. They decided to do it, and then all they did was, you know, in the case of like Warhammer: The Old World, they just tell you what the materials are of the models. That, by the way, resin, plastic, and metal I know. Oh, yeah, I know. It's a shock to me
I think
too.
that the main thing I just got out of it was, yes, we're bringing out models next year. Awesome. That's great. I
and
mean,
and you could guess exactly what they were.
yeah.
So it really didn't prove you anything, and we got a lot of that. And look, fine, right? Fine, that's gonna happen along the way, but people need to just stand up for themselves. Like, you are not there to make Games Workshop a success. If you are in it just to pay their bills, skip the step of having any hobby at all and just send them $30 a month in an envelope.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of. I mean, I know Kirioth did a video on it, but he said like this isn't it. like this is not how you do PR. Like at all. This is not how you tell us what's going on in the hobby the next year. It smites to me as a complete lack of respect. They don't respect your time. They don't respect your opinion. Like here is some stuff that will be coming out over the next year. Is there any specifics? No. Get used to it, right? It'll be out when it's out, and that's what we're doing. And we're going to really be releasing models, shock horror, over the next year. But I think that was it. Like, one of the main things that I took away from that was, so that's it for 40k this year. Like, there's not much else coming out, from what I saw on there. And if they do bring out other stuff, then this is a PR disaster. What are they doing? Like, why? And as you said, nobody was saying we need a roadmap. Nobody was saying we need clarity now. Everyone was like, well, I'm sure they'll bring out something eventually. And then this comes out where it's like, okay, well, yeah, we're bringing out some models, and yeah, we'll see you then. So, wait, so nothing's coming out this year? Are you... The amount of... The one thing I will say for 40k that I've never... To a lesser extent 30k, but it's not really about them, is Xenos players. Like, I cannot imagine being a Xenos player in 40k, because you may as well not be here. I know that sounds really, really harsh, but I'm being honest. Like I feel for them. I think they're an incredibly important part of the hobby, Xenos races. Some of the best in terms of lore, like the Orcs, are just like one of the most wonderful pieces of lore that is actually in 40k. It's great, it's old school, right? Dark Eldar, love all of it. Tau, brilliant. But in terms of new releases, you may as well not be here. you may as well not be playing 40k. You may as well go and, as Macca just says, you may as well just go and send them money every month if you're still buying Games Workshop gear.
Another good example of that is with the Horus Heresy, and I mentioned this on my channel the other day, is they just lump Legions Imperialis and Horus Heresy together. I'm sorry, that's two different game systems.
Yeah, completely.
That's like lumping Kill Teams and 40k together and going, well, this is the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, those releases you might use some of those kits in your 40k army. They might transfer across in some capacity, but they're designed to be two different game systems, right? Well, Legions Imperialis is taking that to the next step, where there is no carryover from one to the other. Here is a completely different scale vehicle, and there's only two factions in the game. It's like, why did they insist on doing this? Like, if I was looking after that game system, I'd be making it into a Great Crusade game system. So you get your Astartes, you get your Solar Auxilia, and you can play Horus Heresy games, sure. But imagine if you started releasing, like, here is the Great Crusade era Eldar, where it's a combination of Dark Eldar and Eldar. Here is your Harad. Here is your Rangdar. Interrex. Start interspersing all those really interesting factions we've never seen, and you could add those at that scale where it's like you don't need to put all the detail in, and you won't need to make a huge amount of stuff on those sprues for those races, because the game is like, hey, here's a bunch of samey looking infantry and samey looking tanks. Like, it's a pretty forgiving game system in that regard. Perfect thing for growing that game system is to add some Xenos factions, and you can set it in a different time period where it gives you more variety than just setting it in the Horus Heresy and just artificially hamstringing yourself. You're just tying a hand behind your back, forcing it to be Solar Auxilia versus Marines until the end of time, and then just turning around and saying there will be releases. They said there'll be a monthly release for the game system. And you think about that and you go, well, hang on, there's two factions for Legions Imperialis, and there's 9 factions for the Horus Heresy. So if every faction got just one thing, that's 11 of your months right there.
Yeah.
It's one thing per faction. So that's not a lot of releases, you know, and that was if every faction got one thing. Probably like 3 to this faction, 2 to that one, whatever it might be, you know. You just don't know. It's so silly. But there are people out there who say this is a good thing, and you say, well, why? And they're like, well, the company's clearly showing that they're supporting the game. And to me, it's like it's just setting such a low bar of expectations. It's like, this is how easy your loyalty is to purchase. It's like, this is an expensive hobby that you're paying for, right? A luxury good, an unnecessary little thing in your life. I'm so passionate about it because I want kids coming up to have the same wonderful experiences I had in my youth playing this game, for one. 2, I'm really invested in it. I've got a ton of stuff that I built up over a long period of time, and it's still one of the best games that I can play with my friends when they come and visit. If people come up here every 3 months, we have a big long weekend. We smoke meats and we play games all weekend. So got this big games room I built, and it's just an awesome time that we have, right? I love that part of the hobby, and that can make up for things like terrible rules because you're around great people. You know, that goes a long way.
Yeah.
But that has nothing to do with the company. So I'm wanting it to succeed. I'm invested. I want to hang around, and so I want to give suggestions to improve things. And my brain it cannot comprehend the people who instead of trying to improve things, just accept it the way it is, even though they can see for themselves it's just getting worse.
I think that this is the thing, right? I fully support that the channels are out there that just want to teach you something in the hobby, whether it's a basing technique or shading or how to write lore properly or whatever like that. I'm all for that, and I'm all for people like Mini Wargaming who are really struggling right now. That's another thing that I wanted to touch on. We are seeing a lot of Warhammer content creators going to the wall financially, right? Now, if you want to tell me that this is a sustainable hobby that is priced fairly, why are so many massive Warhammer YouTubers, mainly on your part of the world, by the way, Maka, mainly in Australia and New Zealand, why are they going to the wall? Why are so many of these people saying, look, we need your help on Patreon, we need thousands of dollars every month, or this isn't sustainable? Okay, I know a few of them have made mistakes, right? There was one channel out there that I know has made a few. They've hired people that they shouldn't have maybe hired, you know, to have full-time jobs, and now they're all going part-time. I think you know who I mean. But we're seeing more of them even in the States now, saying, look, we have to dial back what we're doing. Mini Wargaming, that's one of the biggest ones out there in Canada. They've turned around and said, look, we need to dial things back. The vault's going to change. Our pay-per-view service is going to change because we need more resources. We need more money. They're not making money on Ravage Star because they get money and then they reinvest it into their business, as you should do, but they're not actually making any money. Do you know what I mean? This is the state of the hobby, right? So this is why I think it's very important to have this conversation, and this is why I was kind of defending Discourse Miniatures before, because we need voices like that in the hobby, despite sometimes the clickbaity nature of them, because this hobby isn't affordable to do as a content creator unless you're getting free stuff from Games Workshop. It's not. If you're covering models, you're making a loss if you're not getting free gear from Games Workshop. And that is a dangerous place to be, in my opinion. Are you seeing the same thing that I am when it comes to more and more channels dialing back their operations, slowing down, letting people go, going part-time, because they literally can't afford to be here anymore?
It's very interesting to note the channels out there that are getting the free stuff that are not big channels. That's very telling, because it's like the company's exhausted what it can do with the big channels for whatever reason, whether they didn't want to have that partnership because, you know, it was not a necessarily favorable partnership. Let's be very, very honest here. But we're seeing channels with just literally in some cases a couple of hundred subscribers, barely a couple of hundred subscribers, getting free stuff. So the people that they're reaching out to in the company, like, there's a reason that they're reaching out to those small channels. And those small channels are going to be very, very, very dependent on that stuff. Because if you're a 200 subscriber channel, you're not making your livelihood off this hobby. It's just impossible. You just couldn't do it. You know as well as I do. AdSense, the Google ad service, what you get for people clicking your videos, it's not a lot of money.
No.
Our channel sizes in the 20,000 area, it's not a lot of money. No. You would need, I would say, 5 times that to live comfortably. Would probably be my guess. You'd need 5 times the subscribers and views to live comfortably. Yeah. So to give people an idea, that's 100,000 subs. If you got 100,000 subs and you're a one-man show, okay. If you're 200,000 subs, that's now you can do a 2-man show, right? So you can sort of get an idea of the numbers here. If you're seeing a channel and it's like 5 or 6 people, you know they've got to be over 1 million subs and getting equivalent views percentage-wise that I would.
Do you think
to make that work?
Sorry, I just want to jump in. Do you think that Games Workshop are doing this with smaller creators? Because it's almost like a conveyor belt. You know when they do the management conveyor belt where they get you in early to indoctrinate you, sort of a thing, like what they did with me. So that they're getting these small creators and building them themselves. You know, we will give you.
Well, who's gonna
comes out? You know, and then you're one of us. Then you're not working for us, but we're getting free good publicity, and we can switch off that tap at any time. All of the power in this relationship lies with us, with Games Workshop, right? You will give us good reviews, and we can control the narrative. Do you think that's what's happening with these small creators getting stuff?
Oh, very much. Has to be. Because who's going to listen to a subscriber, or who's going to listen to a person who's got 200 subscribers and can't say a negative thing?
Yeah.
Like, how sustainable is that going to be for that channel? Like, they're going to want to have something else in the bank that makes them worth watching as a channel.
Yeah.
So for Games Workshop, it's quick, easy promotion. Send a kit that's worth, nickels and dimes, fundamentally, out to them. Get the good PR of sending some free stuff out to someone to review. Cash the positivity checks, and the minute that person grows a spine, cut them loose.
Yeah. Essentially.
I know it sounds cynical, but that's what we've seen.
Is what it is. It's dangerous. And then this is why negativity in the hobby is needed. You know, again, we've called out the practice of being negative for negative's sake, right? If you're just putting negativity into the world, you're adding nothing to it, and I understand that, and I get it. But cynicism is needed. Absolutely needed. This is a massive corporation, a huge corporation with an ungodly amount of power in the sphere that it operates in. I can't see any other industry where there is such a monopoly. Maybe in the PC market with Microsoft, but I can't. But even then, you've got Apple around. But I can't see another industry out there where there's one actor in the industry who is absolutely dominant with a 90+% market share like Games Workshop have. And if they are allowed to control the narrative online, it means the only people we can actually trust to give us a good opinion, a balanced opinion, are people that ream out the company on a regular basis, sometimes for clickbait. That is where we are, and that's a dangerous place. And that's why I value channels like yours and others who are out there who actually have a balanced take. They have a balanced take on what's going on and can give an informed opinion because they're not beholden to Games Workshop. But we have to remember, your channel, Macca, is the exception, not the rule, because you're not beholden to YouTube for your money and your rent, as you brought up before, right? Thousands of others are, and as we've seen, there are hobbyists, big channels much bigger than ours, who are going to the wall because they can't afford to keep up their current schedule of videos. Why? Because they can't afford to pay for the boxes anymore. They can't afford to pay for their staff and their editors and all of these other things to keep the lights on. As soon as you make that transition into being a more professional channel, that's when the sunk cost fallacy starts to rear its ugly head and you start putting more money into a channel, that starts to lose money, because this is not a hobby in which you can reliably get free stuff unless you're giving a good opinion, because their market share is that tightly controlled. And I think we need people like Discourse Miniatures. We need people, I'm not putting in the same bracket as Discourse Miniatures because you are very different channels, but we need people like the Outer Circle too, to be able to give a balanced opinion, to be able to reset, just a bit of reality here. Let's take a step back and examine what this was, rather than just saying what it, rather than just blind positivity. Because I honestly think that if we don't put this in check now, and the cat may already be out the back, let's be honest with you, but if we don't put this in check now and start getting behind, or start celebrating creators who may only do 1 or 2 box, reviews a month. Do you know who's a really good one? Sword and Steel. She's really good. She's a really good channel. Like back in the day, I think her relationship with Games Workshop has changed, because back in the day she used to be really pro Games Workshop, like really. Even when the copyright stuff was happening, she was making videos saying, "No, leave Games Workshop alone," that kind of a thing, and it almost made me want to unsubscribe, to be honest with you. But recently, last couple of years, she actually gives an honest take. She's like, "No, this isn't a very good product. It's from Games Workshop." She runs. But again, she's not beholden to Games Workshop. She runs her own hobby store. Do you know what I mean? So, but we need more voices like that who are able to give a right down the middle. The Angry Joes of this world. We need more people like that in the hobby reviewing sets and reviewing boxes. Because at the moment, all I can see is a massive corporation trying and succeeding in controlling the narrative online. What do you reckon? Is there any way you can jump off there?
I would love to be able to be that guy, but realistically, I can't. It needs to be someone new.
Yeah.
You can't be that guy either, because unfortunately, our reputation is made, for better or worse. I will have people come on. I've done this test. I ran 2-3 months straight, more possibly, of just positive content. Pure, okay, if you drew a long bow, you could make some arguments to be made that some of it was negative, but I mean, it was really very much just looking more at the war and army building and things like that, right? So not talking about how the company was looking at their products, not talking about good and bad rules. I was just, quote unquote positive. And then I did negative video, and then instantly had those comments popping up. "Oh, this channel is nothing but negative." It's like, you fucker.
Yeah.
3 months.
Yeah.
Positive. Here's a screenshot of it, of these videos. They're not negative.
Mm-hmm.
But once the reputation is made, that's it. You can't shake it, right? And I'd love to just dial myself back to a 5 or a 6 in personality for online, right? To pull those Imperial Fist characters back out of the fans, and to be the one who sits there like a true total biscuit. Just goes "Look, here's the pros, here's the cons." I do that in only one set of videos, and you know what? They're not very, very much watched. I did a video called "Understanding and Assessing Power Levels in Horus Heresy." It's a very by the numbers. This is why something is good. This is why it's bad. I don't let my emotions bleed into it at all. There's no swearing. There's no any of that, right?
Yeah.
But because it doesn't have the persona, that character, the Maca dialed up to 11, people don't watch it.
Yeah.
Well, the lesson, the important lesson that's being taught in there is just lost on people. It's needed, but clearly it can't be me.
Or
that's
me.
my takeaway
and
from
I'm not
it.
volunteering. It's this is not me either. I think this is we need new voices, man. We need new people to come in.
I'd love to get there's a couple of I think we could make a good panel, yourself, myself. What the 40K is a guy I talk to a lot as well. I think he'd be great. If we put together a podcast and went through these things, we could make something great. But yeah, we are just not in the position to be the people that speak the common sense, because when we try, unfortunately, it falls on deaf ears, because the opinion has already been made up before they click on the video.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the election fever. You know what I mean? It's like everybody knows what they want before they even. I don't even know why we're giving this opinion, but I think, you know, consumer advocacy is something that it is solely missing in 40k discourse online. It is the ones that we do have are almost bad actors in themselves, because negativity sells, and that's the hill they want to die on. That's how they're making their content, and that's how they're making their money. And they're getting good views, by the way. You know what I mean? Negativity, it has a ceiling, definitely, that we've explored in a video already. But it will make sure that you are able to pay your rent. You're able to grow to a certain standard if you're just negative at Games Workshop all of the time. But in doing that, it's still a net negative in the hobby, because you're not giving an honest opinion on what you're finding in a box, right? The one guy I really wish would do this is Bardic Broadcasts. His reviews are really funny and really good and really in-depth. And we need somebody like that to go, right, I'm going to do a 40k box every month. I'm going to get the box, brand new, out the box, going to look at it, what's value does it have, how does it feel to build it, how does it feel to paint it, and I'll do several videos that month on this one box. That would be something that I would really get behind, and that we actually need, because the amount of products that we're given that are, I mean look at the Blood Angels, man. Look at the state of it. Look at the state of this Blood Angels box. You know, pay us more money for less models, please. It's not, no, and yet we don't hear
you see
anything.
There's the problem. You won't hear anything, but if you and I make the content on, and I did talk about those Blood Angels, but when the minute you and I make, people will not click on that video because they know exactly what we're going to say before we say it, for one. Even the shills know, like deep down in their black souls, the ultimate fanboys of the company go, this is what they're going to pick on about the model. They'll rationalize themselves why it's a great thing, but they'll say, this is what they're going to pick on about the model.
Yeah.
So I don't need to watch that video because their opinion doesn't mean shit because I like the model anyway. Right? And then the fans who click on the channel, well, they're our fans. They're going to click on it, right? And that group of people in the middle is looking at this going, yeah, well, I guess they aren't great, but why am I going to click on your channel versus any of the hundreds of other channels that are out there? So it muddies the waters a bit, but people knew as soon as those models came out that we're going to say something, and many people go, well, of course you're going to say something negative because that's your thing, right? That's your shtick. So it didn't matter what we were going to say. It's funny. That's all. It's funny how like the human psyche has worked its way around the internet when it comes to content creation.
So I am reticent that we're getting on for time because it's Sunday night and you've got work and things. But I think one big takeaway is that we wanted to make here, or at least I wanted to make, and I'm not sure if Mackie he'll fill us in on what his takeaway was, is that we need new voices. If you think you can be that voice, you know, if you have disposable income enough and the time and the passion to go and create a hobby YouTube channel where you want to discuss new things coming out in Warhammer, take them apart piece by piece and give an honest opinion, you are more than welcome to join this space. You won't make any money for at least a couple of years, you know, be warned. But at the same time, dude, we need more voices like that, more passionate voices who aren't doing this because they're getting paid, but are doing this because they want to provide a service. They want to be of service to make sure that the hobby is growing in the way that they think it should. That is my big takeaway from here. What do you reckon, Mac? Are you on the same boat, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I'd like to see someone who's able to come along and has the ability to say, this is my honest review of this product, and for it to actually be an honest review, not the shield review that I've grown very used to, which is this is great, this is great, this is great. Then when they hit a major flaw, they're like, this had some issues, but, you know, don't worry about that. Moving on quickly.
Yeah.
Right? That's where most people fall down. They dwell too much on one or the other aspect and gloss over. They gloss over the thing that's inconvenient to them, whether it's the shills or whether it's the haters, right? Haters will gloss over the great. Shills will gloss over the bad. We need a person who can come along and will happily sit there and, like I say, my template for discussing rules is my understanding and assessing Legion power levels. I think that's really fair and balanced. And I'll name drop again What the 40K, who I mentioned earlier. He does also very, very unbiased and fair like rundowns of, hey, here's a set of rules here. What's going on? Yeah. You know, if someone can bring that to the table, but without the baggage, without the baggage that we bring, and the obvious connotations of our personality, like that could be the hobby total biscuit. It can exist.
Mm-hmm. It can. I mean, it probably won't for a while, but it can. All right, we'll leave it there. We'll piss off now and go and put our heads in some ice. We'll see you guys later. Have a good one.
See you.